Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the fifth episode of the student interview series. I am Anindita Dutt, and I am one of the Chief Communications Officer at Steamboat. And today I'm here with Arya Upadhyay. Um, would you like to introduce yourself, Arya?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Arya. I'm the founder of Plan to Change. This is a non-profit organization where basically we teach middle schoolers and elementary school students something about climate change and little ways that they can contribute to their community. This is like also a leadership opportunity for high schoolers and college students where they can show something that they've learned in STEM and share it with the youngsters.
Okay, wow, very interesting organization, Arya. If you don't mind me asking, what grade are you in currently?
I'm 11th grader.
Okay. Oh, actually, me too. But that is really, really impressive to start your own organization at as a junior in high school. You're like we're quite young, and you don't expect this much initiative from like kids that are that young, but you're doing such a great job starting your own nonprofit organization, especially about climate change, which is like um, a huge topic that isn't discussed as much as as it should. So, would you like to talk about what really inspired you to start this organization?
Something that really inspired me is that we had this little competition in our school where they were talking about climate change, and this student come up to me and they were like, "Oh, I don't believe in climate change. I don't think that's real." So
Yeah.
that
Okay.
really got me motivated.
Mm-hmm. No, I would be too. Like that's a very interesting stance to take on a topic that is so relevant to today's age, right? Yeah. No, like wow. No, that is very I love that you took something like that and you were like, "You know what? I'm gonna show them that, we need to fix this issue." Um, Speaking of which, you mentioned you were at a competition, so I'm assuming that you've gone through a lot of these STEM activities throughout your life. So how's your STEM journey been to the point till you started this organization?
Yeah, so in the start, I was not really focused on STEM. This started off as like a school garden, a community garden, but I realized the potential that STEM had for my project. So we recently made like a biodegradable robot that acts like a seed. So you put it in soil, it monitors like the nutrients of the soil, what plants you should put in it, any like extra notes that you should have, and this is like very good for students who are in elementary, who are in middle school, that don't have idea of what do I put in this soil. So now what they're doing is that with this technology that the college and high school students have made, now we're able to reach more people and reach more ways on how we can actually start a garden with the help of STEM.
Wow, that is very impressive. Making a robot is like no joke. Like I've done robotics and I like that's like a team. We have like mentors and stuff, but you like did this not to win like a competition or anything, but to just make an impact in your community, and that is impressive in its own. And knowing robots, like the process must have been a little challenging or like had some problems, right? So would you like to talk about that? Because building a robot is impressive, man. Like, wow. Like, what was the journey for that?
So once we started, it was more of like a biomimicry challenge. It was more on how can we make this robot to fit more daily needs rather than just take up a lot of space. So we had multiple drafts of this. We went through years of testing, and finally we've came up with like a solution that looks like a fly's wing. Basically, it's so thin and it's so unnoticeable that once you put it in, you can't tell it's there.
Okay, so it's very small and it's okay. Wow. So it's like a literal seed. So I get why you would call it like that. Okay. So it's like, okay. Wow. And that's very creative and like very, um, I wouldn't have thought of that. Like when I think of like measure like looking at the soil and looking at the nutrients and stuff like that. I don't have as much knowledge as you do, obviously, but I don't think of it as putting a seed in there. That is wow, that's good thinking right there. Um
Thank you.
You mentioned that there's a team that you work with behind this. So, are these just people in your school? Are these like your friends, or are these people that you've built connections with over the years through your STEM journeys?
So this started off with middle schoolers, and my sister is in elementary, so that's our audience. But we reached out to international people who have came to us like, oh, I'm really good in STEM and I want to add my perspective onto this project. So currently we're a team of 40 people. We're from all over the globe.
Oh my God, wow. Okay, 40 people all over the globe. So, guys, if you guys can't see the impact of this, this is not just a community, it's like an international platform if I'm getting the right gist of this, right? The minute this interview is over, I'm going to go check you guys out. This is crazy. So if I'm getting this right, you start like you go through to this competition. There's this person who doesn't believe in climate change. So you're like, okay, I'm going to do something about this problem for people that are refusing to take action. Then you go in and then you create a biodegradable robot that acts like a seed to go in the soil and helps with the ecosystem and the community with gardening and stuff like that, and as well as like educating middle and elementary schoolers. Wow, okay, I've learned so much about your organization into 5 minutes of this interview, and I'm already so impressed. This is crazy. So where do you get all this inspiration from? Like the rest of us don't have this many brain cells. How do you do what you do in your
I feel
organization?
like a lot of people bring their own perspectives onto things, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's really important to our organization, having as many thoughts, as many comments, feedback. I feel like that's like the success of our organization.
Okay. Have you guys done any other projects or any current projects that you guys are maybe trying to work on in the future?
Yeah, currently we're working on a children's magazine.
Mm-hmm.
We aim to create this more towards GMOs, so that it's more digestible to the younger audience.
Right. Some of those magazines are hard to read, even as like, even as, even as like teenagers or like, even my parents have like trouble reading some magazines. They're like, oh my God, this is so like boring. I can't stand reading another page of this. So this is definitely like garnering magazines towards kids will help educate them more on specific topics. So I think that's a great idea, and I hope that you find success in this next project.
Thank you.
Um, I noticed that there's like a trend of you like helping your community and all that. So did you do anything when you were younger that might have maybe inspired what you do now?
Yeah, so my grandfather is a farmer and he believes in community and helping others and just giving back to what gives back to you. So I feel like his morals, his beliefs has really come on to me and I feel like I want to give back too just because I've spent so much time learning from him on his garden, on his farms, and I feel like his spirit is always with me.
Oh wow, that's touching, and that is a beautiful way to answer that question. Um, I'm very impressed by you, Arya. Like my respect for you is like up here right now because you're doing a lot for your community, and we're the same age, and I'm like, wow, you're doing so much for our community. Um and you're inspiring people like me, like younger kids. You have a sister, and I'm sure she finds you to be like a huge inspiration as well. Look, my big sister is like doing all this stuff. um Speaking of which, when you like when you go to college, which is going to be in a couple of years, do you plan to do anything with do you want to do anything that you've taken from this organization into maybe what you're pursuing later in life? Like, is this something that you want to pursue as a career, possibly?
Yeah, I'm looking into computer science as of now. The robot is fully coded and it works on the code by me.
Mm-hmm.
My team is really good in engineering. That's something that I lack, but I feel like together we work good.
That's good. That's good. That's a really good combination. Like you always need like an engineering side and you always need like a programming side.
Yeah.
Personally, on my robotics team, I can't program at all. Like I will be stuck. I'll try like doing something and it will end up backfiring. I will have to rewrite the code like 10 times and everyone was like, "You know what? Maybe you should just go back to screwing those little nuts into the bolts and stuff like that. Like you should leave that to the programmers." So I just you know what?
It's
Engineering
teamwork
is
though.
yeah, it's like I
Yeah.
it's just I'm not really that much of a help, but building a robot by yourself, coding it with a 40 plus team. Like we have a lot of members in our team and we still take a long time to build a robot, but you have 40 people, which might seem like a lot at first, but when it comes to a project like this is so intense, it might not always. I don't know how it is for your project, but wow, I'm really impressed. And speaking of which, so you want to go into computer science. Um, is there like a specific thing that you do at school as well? Like I know a lot of people who want to maybe go into medicine take like biology classes in school. Do you do something like that?
Yeah, my school offers a lot of AP computer science courses. And there's a lot of clubs at my school as well that I participate in.
Okay. Would you like to talk a little bit about those clubs, maybe your academic, so that some
Yeah,
people get an idea? Hmm.
absolutely. So my courses, currently I'm taking APCSP, and I'm also in my school cybersecurity team. What we do there is we're basically finding ways that you can stop your school or yourself from getting hacked and how you can apply them to like normal everyday situations.
Okay, so that sounds like you're already like set for your career. I mean, that's a lot of what I'm not going into computer science, but I have friends that want to do that, and that sounds very similar to um what computer science is all about in college and as a career as well. Um so for people who want to pursue computer science in the future, who are incoming like freshmen or like high schoolers, would you recommend a certain like um academic pathway possibly? Like what classes should they take?
I would say that at the end of the day, the courses don't define you. It's more about what passion you have for the field and what you want to do based off of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like you said, your passion for helping your community is, I'm guessing that is what inspired you to pursue computer science, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, like even now, like even in computer science, you're working on helping other people with your cybersecurity club. Um, or cybersecurity team at your school. So, speaking of just academics and clubs and rigor like that, how would you think that STEM in general affects your community? Like, how is the environment with STEM at in your in your school? Like, how many people in general like take STEM courses and do related activities like yourself?
Oh, it's awesome that you ask. I go to a STEM magnet school, so literally
Oh,
everyone takes STEM.
okay, that's wow, that answers the question, right? So so it's a very STEM oriented um curriculum,
Yeah.
yeah, environment. So, you're growing up with you're learning everything that you want to know for pursuing a STEM career. Um, a lot of people that I have interviewed go to like schools where some people take STEM, but it's more like a certain careers based in that. So like if it's like at my school personally, like when I a lot of people want to go into medicine, like so there's only people going to medicine. You don't see that many people doing other STEM. So is that like the same sort of thing at your school? Is it just one field, or is it like, oh, I want to go into computer science. I want to be like a biologist. I want to be a chemist. Or is it like, oh, I just want to be in medicine, or I just want to be in computer science? How diverse are the STEM interests at your school?
I feel like my school is pretty diverse. The engineering section is pretty impressive, and their healthcare is also great. I feel like the three pathways that they're really invested in are really good, and it's pretty diverse.
Okay, that's good because diversity is always like a place where people thrive and find their unique passions like you have. Which I want to go back to your organization because that was very interesting. Is there like anything you want to share about your organization that maybe people might benefit from learning? Anything that you've learned in your experience as a founder, that might help other potential people out there that want to start something as impressive as yourself?
Yeah, so one advice that I'd give for anyone who's looking to find something that's really passionate to them, I would say start off with a lot of things that you're passionate about or that are interesting to you. Then narrow them down, narrow them down. It takes years to build an organization. And I feel like we just overwhelm ourselves with like the big idea of, I want to do this. I would say take it small, make it foundationally good, and then go off of that.
I agree. It's like a huge step to just start an organization. And I love how you emphasize the planning part because a lot of people nowadays just hear an organization and they're like, oh, another person started another organization, but they don't realize how much planning and thinking goes into it. So just talking about that, would you like to talk about how your planning process was to starting your own organization? You've mentioned that it took you a long time to, start something as big as this, which I totally see that because it isn't successful organization.
Yeah, so I started this with my three closest best friends. We started this with our own interests in mind, with CS, engineering, and healthcare. So you can see all three of those aspects in our organization. I feel like
Hmm.
the way that we really planned this out was that you focus mainly on one thing that's interesting to you, and then you find people that are working in that sector. So you want to interview as many people as you can, as many founders as you can. And I think that the viewers over here, they're already doing a great job at this.
Yeah.
So I would say just talking a lot about this, refining your idea with like a lot of teachers, your parents, any neighbors that you might have, and just get the idea run through so many times that it's perfection.
So you know exactly what you need to do. So like everything is in plan and motion. I've had a couple of friends that have tried to start their own organizations, but unfortunately they were unsuccessful because they did not have the right planning process. It was more so um, like, oh, they're just doing it because it'll look good on college apps, which I mean, a lot of people do that. But I like how you used your own passion and you had a specific reason why you started your organization. It was not clear, it was not just for a certain like arbitrary purpose like that. Like you're doing things to help your community, which I think is also important for the viewers to listen to this because um not everything is black and white when it comes to starting organizations. It takes a lot of planning, like Arya said, and it takes a lot of researching. It takes a lot of communicating with other professionals, other people that are in that field. Um, and like you mentioned that you talked to a lot of people and you had like Also, I also found this really interesting that you combined 3 different, like, STEM fields all together, and now that I'm thinking back on it, like, all of that, like, fits so well together, like, your computer science, the engineering, the healthcare, everything's just merged so perfectly together, which I need to stop fangirling first off, but that's wow, okay. Um, but yeah, so it takes a lot to start an organization, and then to keep that organization running, Arya, what steps do you guys take to make sure that, your organization doesn't fall apart like unfortunately some people's does? How do you maintain that in your organization?
Yeah, I feel like with my organization, it was so close to falling apart like so many times. I would say the best way to keep going, to like keep everyone motivated, is that you keep having exciting projects, you give everyone a break, and you take a break yourself. I feel like we get so overworked at sometimes that we're like, we need to do this while the rest of your team isn't on board. So communication is also key. I feel like just having an idea and not communicating it with the rest of the team doesn't really work that well. Especially with 40 people, you need to get it crystal clear. What do you want and how do you want it done?
I agree with you. That is a large team to operate, even for 4 people, and like sometimes I can imagine it can get challenging. And not only are you guys are not like all in the same area too, like you guys are all over the map, right? So
Yeah.
that must be a little bit more difficult, because you're not like, oh, all 40 of you guys are going to the same school, so you catch all 40 of them. You're like, okay, this is what I want, right? You need to communicate. Do they live in the same time zone, or are there different?
Different time
Oh
zone.
Lord, that is hard. That is hard to different time zones is even harder. So, yeah, communication is key. That is very important, and I'm glad that you that is a big part of your organization because, a lot of organizations don't have that key aspect, and then that can cause you to fall apart. Um, are there any challenges that your organization faced in, like, certain projects, just as in, like, oh, you didn't know how to do a specific step or you were having trouble doing exactly what you needed to do? Were there any challenges or pitfalls, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so sometimes there are some team members that aren't necessarily on par with the rest of the team. They need a little bit more work, they need a little bit more time. So getting past that the overbearing situation where you're just trying to communicate with them, but they're just not getting it. I feel like the best way to go about it is just you have a time with them and you just sit down. I feel like communication is the key. You really need to knock some real sense into yourself and be like, why am I doing this? And then once you get it, like once you get the whole goal into yourself, then you're like, okay, now I can communicate this. Because sometimes there's been times when I'm just vaguely describing some things, and I'm like, oh yeah, you can just figure it out as you go. I feel like that's something that's a big pitfall in most organizations where you're just not clear enough.
I agree, yeah. And I like how you don't take I love how you don't put the blame on anybody in your organization or any of your team, and you make it clear that it is a communication problem, which, like, I have been part of, like, I think a couple other organizations in where, communication was not very big and it was not very good, and, unfortunately, because of lack of clarity and lack of, like, concise instruction, the team fell apart. And so I love how you drive that point forward, that some things just need to be clarified a little bit more. And of course, like, you have a lot of stress on yourself. Like, you're running an organization of more than like 40 people, and they're all over the globe, and they're like, they're all trying their best to keep up, but obviously some people are not going to always have the same vision as the founder. And you're working hard on that, and I love the values you have for your organization. I love what you're doing. Um, and honestly, I'd just like to ask you if you have any advice for the people out there that want to create change like you are.
Yeah, so I would say my biggest advice is start small.
So like just start like could you go into that just a little bit more?
Yeah. So I would say just start with something small, like let's say school gardens. That's how we started. You start off with something that's achievable, something that's clear, and then you move it into something that's uh more interesting, something that drives more passion towards.
So you started a little bit smaller in your own community and then you got a little larger. And I like that because, you had a huge goal in mind and you started off small and then you've achieved your large goal. Do you have any more goals in the future that you'd like to maybe pursue? Maybe there's something that, you hope that your organization can drive forward to the rest of your community or anything like that?
Yeah, well, I'd like to talk about that. Firstly, I would say that most people, when they fall into a pitfall, it's more like they have this clear vision in mind. 9 times out of 10, that doesn't happen. So I feel like just focusing on what's in front of you. I feel like right now, not having any big expectations and just focusing on like the current project and then moving on to the next one is like extremely beneficial and it keeps you in check.
hmm I agree with you. You have really good advice for people who might struggle with pitfalls or stuff like that in their organization. And honestly, everything you've said, I've learned a lot from so far. Um, for maybe the incoming freshmen or the incoming high schoolers, um, if they want to do things like you do, and I'm sure you take hard classes, like you've already mentioned you take some AP classes as well, right? So how do you manage that work and like organization and your schoolwork and your organization and your extracurriculars? How do you do that?
I feel like keeping everything written down and making a schedule in like Google Calendar or like anything on your phone. You have a lot of resources out there. Just having something down where, oh, I have school from this time to this time, I have my extracurriculars this time to this time, then I can work on my project this time, then I have homework this time. Just keeping everything organized. I know that sometimes you get off the track and you're like, oh, I didn't achieve anything that I wanted to. I would say just looking at the next day as a new hope and thinking, yeah, I can do this.
Yep, that's how I feel about my homework right now. It's like I need to get it done, but it's not due tomorrow, so maybe I'll do it a day right before. But yeah, having that like work balance is really, really important, and I'm glad that that is present in your life, which leads to a good organization, a sustained organization. Um, do you have any advice for not just I know I've asked you for advice a couple times already, but I mean, just for people that are listening to you right now, what you've learned throughout this entire journey, what you want to maybe let them know about how sometimes it has been hard and sometimes it's been really good. What do you want to tell the viewers and how do you want to inspire them to make change?
Yeah. So I've been in this organization for 6 years now, and every so often months, I'm like, oh, I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore. It's overwhelming, it's stressful, I can't do this. That's the time where you really dig down and you find your passion. Why are you doing this? So I would say when you're starting something new, when you're going to go achieve something, don't go just for the prestige. Don't just go because, oh, it's going to look good on my college application. Don't
Mm-hmm.
just go because, oh, my mom's going to be so proud of me. No,
Yeah.
go because you want to go. Go because you have a passion to go there.
Arya, you're making me motivated to get up and get my life together. Um, you you should be like one of our next motivational speakers or something.
You
Because
should, yeah.
yeah, no, I will contact you about like like motivational speeches and whatnot. Um, like you've given such great advice. I've learned so much from you just having this conversation with you today, um, about your organization, about your like amazing robot that I'm still comprehending in my head. I'm like fangirling inside that you like created like like wow, it's just crazy. And then your passion, your way of thinking, the way you manage your life, the way you work to inspire people in your community, like younger generations, you're really driving the STEM culture forward and you're really bringing true meaning to it. Not just by, not just by creating projects, not just by doing that, but also by encouraging other kids, other like newer generations to do things like you. So thank you so much for sharing all the amazing things that you've done. Are there any final thoughts or anything that you'd like to maybe talk about? Anybody who might want to join your organization, if that's still open? Is there anything you'd like to say to conclude?
I would just like to say, take it easy and find your passion. I know it's over talked about. I know it's something that's like overwhelming right now, but just go out there, do everything that you want to try, and then find something that really resonates with you.
I agree. I mean, wow, you are a very motivating and a very inspiring person, and I hope that, your organization goes like achieves more success, and I hope that your projects do really, really good, especially your magazine that's coming out. I will check that out if it's available to to the
I'll send
public.
one special for you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I would love that. I would love to see it. I will show my younger sister. I have a sister as well, so I will show it to her. But it was amazing to interview you today. You are an amazing person, and I hope that things go well for you and your organization. But thank you for coming in and taking out time for this interview. Of
Thank you for interviewing me today. Yeah, it was
course.
nice meeting you.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you as well. Right. Steamboat people that are still viewing this, we have new episodes coming out every week. We have our next student interview next week, so please go check that out on our Instagram, our website, and we also have a TikTok now, so please go check that out.